The mask mandates are back in St. Louis. Will they be coming to your city soon? China wants an apology from NBC for showing an incomplete map at the Olympics, and rich people are suffering in the Hamptons because they can't find summer help. We've got all that and much more, and it starts right now. Happy Monday, everyone. I am Jill Savage, filling in for Sarah Gonzalez, who will be back tomorrow. So holding down the fort with me for the next hour, we have producer and actor Matthew Marsden. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Rob Eno, BlazeTV and media critic.
Thanks for having me on.
Very excited. All right, guys. Are you excited for mask mandates coming back? I know everybody is.
Yes!
Awesome.
This is what we've all been waiting for. St. Louis is potentially going to reinstate the mask mandates on Monday, even for vaccinated people. They came out and said that mask mandates will apply to adults as well as children as young as 5 years old for those who have been vaccinated against COVID-19. More than 1,000 new COVID cases have been reported in St. Louis County over the past week, including 2 deaths. So this is where we're at again. We got out of the woods, and now the mask mandates are coming back. How do you feel about this, Matthew?
Well, one of the reasons why I moved from California was because of the mask mandate and what they were doing there. Someone actually called the police on my wife and a bunch of homeschool moms because the 3-year-olds were running around without masks on. I mean, so I'm just like, you know what, that's the last straw. And if I hear someone else say, well, you see, when surgeons go in and they perform operations, they wear those masks. I'm like, yeah, okay, so do you follow every protocol like a surgeon? Do you get rid of the mask after you've used it once? Do you wash your hands by using the elbow? No, it's ridiculous. It's a sign of compliance, and that is all it is at this point. They don't work. I mean, we know they don't work, so. I
mean, you bring up the surgeon thing because that's what they always do. The reason a surgeon wears a mask is so his spit doesn't fall on your open wound. It's not to stop a virus that comes in an aerosol that can go through the interstitial difference or the void in between the threads of the mask. I mean, the threads of a mask, I looked this up during the beginning of the whole COVID thing. If you can see through a mask and you can see a little bit on the other side and you can see light, it means that a minimum it's 100 microns big. Not to get too technical, bringing my chemie degree in here. If you can see through it, it's 100 microns. Your cough, your aerosolized droplet is 10. Now, I didn't need to go to engineering school to know that 10 is less than 100 and that it can go right through and it stays up in the air. And they even did the study, was it NC State? It was either NC State or the University of North Carolina that did a study that those gaiters that people wear, that's actually worse because what they do is they take the droplet and they split it in half so you have twice as much virus hanging around in the air. Masks do not work. They've never worked. Every study in the history of the world that has studied viruses, respiratory viruses, has shown that masks don't work. And all of a sudden they do. Like you said, it's a virtue signal and it's a compliance thing and it's to make people feel better.
And since May 13th, the CDC came out and said that vaccinated people could resume activities and go about their normal lives without a mask, right? Like this was the incentive to get the vaccine. And now, this is July 26th, so a mere 2.5 months later, they're all trying to get us to go back and say, okay, we're going to pretend that nothing that we said for May 13th on is actually happening. So how do you think Americans are going to react to this?
Well, I think that for a lot of people worldwide, they're just so confused by everything. And what a lot of people aren't talking about is how it's affecting them mentally. I mean, we've just found out today that the PCR test actually doesn't differentiate between flu and COVID. So when you're talking about these COVID cases arising, are they COVID cases? Do we know they're COVID cases? Are they flu cases? We don't know. I mean, at this point, I think people's confidence is completely shot because they're for it before they're against it. And then they change and they change and they change. So a lot of us are going, hey, listen, I've had enough. Let's just step back a little bit and look at places like it's hard for us in Texas to actually comprehend a lot of the time about the way other people are feeling in other states where they're locked down. It's really, really hard for them. So, you know, I mean, again, it's become a bit of a joke. And as far as Fauci is concerned, I don't think anyone trusts him. Either you don't trust him or you think he's God, right? I mean, there's no in between.
There's absolutely no in between. I mean, he himself said that it was okay to do the noble lie. Remember when it first came out that, you know, we need to save the masks for this, so I'm going to tell everybody, you know, you don't really need masks. But I always thought you should wear masks, is what St. Fauci at the Potomac said, right? I mean, that's what he said. And it's absolutely insane. And even in Texas, it depends on the county, right? I live here in Dallas County. There's a lot of people that wear masks. A lot of people in Irving, you know, wear masks in my apartment building. I think it's crazy. I went out to Tarrant County, which is where Fort Worth is for people that aren't from Texas. And like I walked into a dentist office and there were no masks. Like the dental people didn't have masks. There was no sign to wear a mask. And I was like, it was like I entered a different world and I was like 10 miles away. So it's just absolutely crazy. People are not going to wear masks. I mean, some will, but you're going to see what happens on the planes, like with the fights and the anger and things like that. You're going to start seeing this in other places where they try to institute masks.
Of course, we have Anthony Fauci coming in, and he was talking about mask mandates over the weekend. And him and Jake Tapper, of course, they both have to get in on the conversation. Here's a little bit of what they had to say.
Do you think masks should be brought back for vaccinated Americans?
You know, Jake, this is under active consideration. If you're asking, am I part of the discussion? Yes, I am part of the discussion. But I think what you are seeing, even though as of our conversation at this moment, the CDC still says and recommends that if you are vaccinated fully, that you do not need to wear a mask indoors. However, if you look at what's going on locally in the trenches in places like LA County, the local officials have the discretion, and the CDC agrees with that ability and discretion capability to say, you know, you're in a situation where we're having a lot of dynamics of infection, so even if you are vaccinated, you should wear a mask. That's a local decision.
It's a local decision now. So it's not going to be Anthony Fauci's fault anymore. He's going to take the blame from him and place it on your local authorities. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's what it should be, right? I mean, I'm okay with that. It should have always been a local thing. There shouldn't have been a national mask mandate. They should get their thoughts together. But, you know, I do want to say something, and this goes into the whole misinformation on the vaccine and all that sort of stuff. Well, you don't need to wear a mask if you have a vaccine. Great. I personally know 2 or 3 people that have been fully vaccinated that have gotten the Delta variant. Now, the Delta variant isn't as bad as the previous variants. There's a lot of things you can do. We know how to treat it now. There's not as many people dying. Yes, some hospitalizations are going up. But, you know, you talk about local mandates. I'm afraid it's going to come back in Texas, even though Abbott, when he did his order back in May, he said if hospitalizations get over 15%, then local authorities can put back in COVID restrictions, right? The county judges, which are county executives in other parts of the country. He said that they can do that, and we're getting some areas that are getting close to 15% again. I mean, the only thing I really take umbrage with what he said is like, oh yeah, I'm part of it. Yep, it's me. Yep, it's all me. Which is what he needs to do. He needs to interject himself and be the end all and be all of everything because.
And Matthew, I think Rob makes a great point there where he says this isn't what we had initially back in March of 2020. We know so much more about the virus, about how to treat it now. So how do you think this differentiation point where we are right now in 2021 versus where we were when we had no information back in 2020?
Well, I think at the end of the day, I have no idea how this guy is still in a job. Right, I mean, he is the most incompetent man, and he's compromised, right? I mean, if you believe that he was behind the gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab, do you think that and this is what I've been saying, I'm saying this on Twitter a lot, right? I respect doctors, I respect our healthcare workers, right? They are not gods, right? They are susceptible to corruption and all the other failures that us mere humans, trust me, I get told all the time, shut your mouth, you're an actor, right? And I get it, all right. But I did play a doctor once in a movie.
Good enough for me.
I did play a doctor once in a movie, so I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, nobody knows what to believe because there's no clear information about anything. Like, you don't know the truth on anything now. So, I mean, going back to these, the PCR tests not being clear about whether it's COVID or flu. So that completely changes everything. If we're being serious, I mean, that should be national news. It should be on the front page of every newspaper. Because let's just say there's 60,000 people die every year of the flu in the US. I'm just making up a number. And now there's like 70,000 people die of COVID. But we know that flu cases apparently have gone down by 98%.
It didn't happen. There was no flu.
What does that say? No. What does it say?
Yeah.
So when they're saying, oh, you know, the COVID, as you said before, the COVID cases are going up. We don't know if they are, do we? Really? Do we know that? Are we sure about that? And this is the problem. We don't have clear guidelines on what are the true numbers, of what is going on, and that's causing a lot of confusion. And when you have confusion, you're able to split people into groups, and that's what's going on.
We can't even agree on whether or not, if you take a bat virus and do some stuff genetically to it with some pipettes, and it becomes more able to be transmitted to human, whether or not that is gain-of-function research. Oh, no. Well, you know, that's what gain-of-function research is, but when we did it this time, it wasn't. So that way, I'm not culpable. I mean, I've seen it. It comes down to the point where I'm at Fauci lied, people died, like with George W. Bush, that the left used to say. He funded, and this is what I loved about Jon Stewart when he went on with Stephen Colbert, and he's like,
great.
Okay, we have the bat coronavirus lab in Wuhan, and it started in Wuhan, and you're telling me that it didn't leave the bat coronavirus didn't leave the bat coronavirus lab? I mean, come on. It's ridiculous.
When otherwise it would have had to travel basically from Texas to New York to get that bat from that one cave where it could have been,
like
all the way over to the wet market.
It was like 1,000 miles away.
Right. And the fact that the media doesn't harp on that, and they give, and they still say, well, we don't know if it came from the lab. I mean, come on. If it was Donald Trump that signed the NIH grant to fund bat coronavirus, there would be like Dateline and 2020 specials, and like CNN would have a 20-hour documentary series on how Donald Trump created the coronavirus that killed everybody. I mean, we all know this. It's absolutely insane.
And there's also the other side of it where they're saying, hey, listen, Chinese will eat anything. Right, they'll eat a bat. They'll eat that, like it's got 4 legs and it's not a table. Or they'll eat it, or you know. And you don't see the other side of that, right? Normally people go, "How dare you say that about them? That they eat bats in a wet market?" By the way, I've been to one of those things. You've
been to the wet market?
I've been to one. I did a movie years ago.
A doctor and wet market.
I know. So really,
all of the talking
everyone
points here.
Everyone should listen to me.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's really absurd. I mean, we are getting to the point where, you know, it's like gaslighting of the highest order, because you're looking like Jon Stewart said, it was hilarious, but he told the truth. You know, it is the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and it just so happens that this coronavirus escaped. And by the way, they've had people come out and say, we work there, it escaped. Right, but there's been this it's like cognitive dissonance where they go, no, we can't say that, we can't possibly say that, and it does make you wonder, right? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, right? But there's some point you got to go, hang on, well that, and Fauci did that, and that came, and now he doesn't want anyone. It's insane. How he's still in a job is just beyond me. I don't understand it.
Yeah, you're able to connect enough of the dots, and the truth will eventually overcome, I feel like. And if you look at the mask mandates are potentially coming back with the vaccines. Now they're saying like it might not just be the 2 shots that you need. You might need an extra jab. So the goalposts are just constantly moving for this. Right.
They have no idea. That's the problem. And, you know, again, you say conspiracy theorist. The conspiracy theorist in me is like, oh, Pfizer and Moderna want more money. That's why they want the extra jab. And we're seeing that, what did they say? 38% effectiveness in Israel with the Pfizer vaccine, which is what I have with the Delta variant. I mean, we're living with the 1918 flu 103 years later. The 1918 flu is still one of the flu strains in different versions that come by every year. We know how to treat it faster. And they don't want to use, there are studies, and I'm not going to mention any of them so that we can stay on YouTube. There are studies that say that certain drugs may or may not work, right? And the media is like, no, none of that, because Fauci didn't say that they work, so they can't work. It's absolutely insane to me.
That's where we are right now. Yeah. Everything that is absolutely insane is what is being kind of taken for granted, and this is going to be the truth. That if we just say it over and over enough times, this is how it's all going to be. Yeah. And it's one of those things that I just can't believe that our reality is what we're actually living through here in 2021. But when we come back, we will have a look at the Olympics and the United States. It only took a couple hours. We've already offended China. We'll tell you how right after this. The Olympics just started, and the United States / NBC has already gone through and made the Chinese upset. They did so by calling the government. NBC showed an incomplete map, they say, during their Olympic coverage of the opening ceremonies. It did not include Taiwan or the South China Sea, and we all know that China is not going to have diplomatic relations with countries that don't recognize the Taiwan's independence there. So, right off the bat, we can't start the Olympic Games without having a little bit of controversy. And of course, it's the United States, it's China. Japan has nothing to do with it. They're the ones hosting it. We're already causing trouble, Rob.
I mean, Taiwan is not part of China. I mean, I'm probably going to get a visit from the Chinese people.
We're going to get kicked off YouTube
now. The Chinese Secret Service is going to come to the house.
We thought we were doing good in the first segment.
I mean, Taiwan has been quasi-independent since forever. The worst thing that Richard Nixon ever did was recognize that the communist government of China was the real China and not Taiwan, which had been our policy since the end of World War II. I mean, it's just, China has no control over it. Taiwan has its own military. Taiwan has its own currency, its own banking system. I mean, for all intents and purposes, China's its own country. This is just China trying to rule the world because they're the number one economic engine in the world now. They manufacture all the things that they manufacture. It's like when you talk to friends that are super libertarians and they're like, oh, I can't believe Trump had tariffs. I'm like, on China, I don't care. I mean, because it's not free trade if you're trading with the communist regime that is like that. Free trade is trade between people and people. You're not trading with people in China. You're trading with the government. The government, I mean, look at Jack Ma, who the Alibaba founder, one of the richest men in the world. He got disappeared for like 2 months after he said something critical about the government. It shows you who's in charge there, and I could care less. I mean, good for NBC.
Yeah, they came out and the Chinese consulate in New York complained on their Weibo social media platform that it hurt the dignity and emotions of the Chinese people. And they called on NBC Universal to recognize the serious nature of the problem and take measures to correct it. Now, NBC still hasn't corrected anything yet. I don't know if they plan on doing it, but we're a couple days in now past the opening ceremonies. What would you do? Like, this is China just trying to maintain that dominance from the start of the Olympic Games.
Well, I think we all know what everyone around this table would do. Right, we wouldn't bow to them. I mean, there's absolutely no way. But this is the communist Chinese, right? It's okay to go. They lecture us on morality, and yet they're murdering, Chinese Muslims by, putting them in concentration camps, and then they go out in the next breath and start lecturing us on what we should be doing. But look, from a Brit looking in, when I was over in the UK, and I've always loved this country. A lot of people used to talk about, oh, well, America, the superpower. I'm like, you want to see what it's like when we're not the superpower, when America is not the dominant force in the world? You're seeing it right now. This is what they're going to do. It's going to get worse. That's what Hollywood is bought by China. And they're just going to keep, sticking their fingers into all these different pies and start lecturing us on how we should be when they have slave labor. Yeah, they're definitely going to come and visit me as well. So I'm just sitting there thinking, oh goodness me, right?
Maybe that's what NBC should do.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to be in the trenches together, it'll be good.
Yeah.
If they want a truthful map, they can put here's where the slave labor camps are. They can put that on the Chinese map if they want, and then they can have a truthful map, and then China can,
They can also have a little piece of California as well.
looking around our table, I can say that this next story is true because I am the only one that has actually watched any of the Olympic Games. You two are both saying how excited you are usually most years for the Olympics to start, but since we've gotten these games here in 2020 now, obviously 2021, the Olympic ceremonies, they drew 16.7 million viewers on Friday night. It's the smallest audience in the last 33 years. It's down 37% from Rio, and that's when 26.5 million people watched. And then in London, 40.5 million people watched. So there's just not that overwhelming support right now for these Olympic Games. I mean, you see the United States basketball team losing to France already, the women's soccer team taking a knee and losing to Sweden. Like, there's a lot of wokeness around these Olympics.
I mean, I went to the what was it, 2015 U.S. Women's National Title game in Vancouver. I was at that game. It was exciting. The U.S. Women's National Team is like the greatest soccer team for women that has ever existed. But their woke is crazy, right? And I don't want to watch them now. I mean, they've made Megan Rapinoe the face of it. There are patriotic people on that team that stand up, that don't kneel down for the national anthem. And I don't care what you do. You have every right to do it, but I have every right not to watch you. I've always loved the Olympics. I'm more of a Winter Olympic guy coming from New England, but I've always watched the Olympics. And I like some of the new sports, like having, skateboarding is kind of cool now. It's kind of like the snowboard half pipe, but it's, there's a lot of cool sports that are on the Olympics, but it just hasn't grabbed me. And I think part of it more is that they didn't allow fans, and I'm not into watching sports without fans. Like, that NBA bubble thing was horrible to watch.
You and LeBron James.
Yeah. Even without LeBron James, it was just horrible to watch with nobody there. I can't watch a sporting event that nobody's there, that you get. And the piped-in crowd noise that the NFL did last year was horrible.
First of all, a lot of the audio people in the NFL don't actually watch football games. I can tell you this from a former sports reporter. So they're piping in noise at the wrong time. So I'm with you. That was very annoying for all of us. Thankfully, we're going to have fans back in the stands. But Matthew, are you going to watch any of these Olympic Games going forward?
No.
Nothing.
Look, I've caught like a couple of, on Twitter, I've seen, a couple of the world records and that, and it kind of dragged me in a little bit. But I feel the same. Look, I've watched the Olympics every year that it came out. I've loved it from when I was a little kid. And here's the thing, again, the perspective from an immigrant coming to this country, I loved seeing American exceptionalism. It really means something to the rest of the world. And I don't think people truly understand, how we, even from other countries, it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, we kind of beat the Americans in this, and that's such an achievement. It's such a great thing to watch. And I think there's a number of reasons actually why people aren't watching. I do think it's a lack of fans, but I do think, I love the flag. I love it. And I think that it's something, when you love your country and you want to go and represent your country and you're representing every single person in your country, that is awesome. And I remember Daley Thompson, I don't know if you remember Daley Thompson was a decathlete. And I remember he was, up there when he won the gold medal, and it was a real moment. It was a real moment of cohesion. But in addition to this, people don't want men in women's sports.
Right.
And that's another aspect of it. We don't want to see someone who is genetically born, I know it's controversial, but genetically born a male going and competing in powerlifting as a female. Because for those of us who have daughters, I'm like, what's the point in you guys doing sports anymore? What's the point if that's going to happen? Imagine that. And then the other things with the people being sent home because they were in the vicinity of someone who had COVID. That was the other aspect of it. There was a couple of people that didn't go to the Olympics because of that. So,
a couple more golfers that can't go over now. And John Rahm just had COVID a couple weeks ago, and then he tested positive again. He's been vaccinated, and he's not allowed to go to the Olympic Games.
It's crazy. And golf. How far do they have to stay away from the other? But it's like tennis. Let them play. They're on two sides of the court.
Right.
There shouldn't be anything stopping them playing.
And they're outdoors.
Right.
I mean,
this is the hypocrisy. And people are just like, I'm done. And by the way, I really just want to watch some sports. I don't want to be lectured to. I don't want to be told how bad my country is or how racist I am or how bad this is. They're just over it. They just want to watch and be proud of the people that are doing it regardless of where they're from or what color or creed they are. People, for the most part, embrace exceptionalism.
Yeah, and I think, on the transgender thing that you talked about, we have a coworker here, Todd Erzin on the Steve Day Show, whose daughter just won, I think it was the 800 meter at the Nationals in high school. She set a personal record, and she set the Iowa record when she did it. Imagine if there was a transgendered woman that was born a male in that. She never would have set that because transgendered women run significantly faster than biological women. I mean, they just do, because people that are born male are stronger than people that are biologically born female.
Yeah, and I feel like that's an issue that we might actually be able to make some progress on. But Matthew is saying that he believes in American exceptionalism. He will not be hired as a teacher in the United States coming up anytime soon. When we get back, we'll take a look at what the schools are trying to do with the kids next. American exceptionalism is out. It's time to go woke or bring in critical race theory into the schools. There was a student up in St. Cloud, Minnesota, that was speaking out after the school required this fourth grader to take an equity survey. Now, some of the students didn't understand what was being asked of them, but the teacher told them repeatedly that they could not go to their parents and ask them to clarify this situation. This fourth grader said, my teacher said that I could not skip any of these questions, even when I didn't understand them. Now, one was asking us what gender we identified with. I was very confused, along with all of my other classmates. And being asked to hide this from my mom made me very uncomfortable, like I was doing something wrong. What are we trying to do now with fourth graders? Because this is all stemming from the George Floyd incident. And the story goes on to say, despite being more than 40 years old, critical race theory has emerged as a flashpoint over the last year, often pitting teachers and school administrators against parents. I look at this and say, okay, we're trying to get fourth graders not to go and tell their parents. Like, anytime when you're saying to a child, it's not okay to tell an adult what is happening, that seems like a clear boundary that we have crossed.
Right. I mean, we've gone from Mr. Rogers, it's you I like, it's everything about you, to you're evil because of the color of your skin. I mean, that's where we've gone in this country, and that's what they're teaching. And it's absolutely insane. And now that kid is going to be blackballed throughout that school system because he had the guts to stand up and say something. And you've got teachers that, even in states where they've said you cannot teach critical race theory, and there have been laws that have been passed that say, I'm still going to do it, because they believe so big. This is what they want to do is drive a wedge between people so they can pit group against group. And it's critical race theory comes from Marxism. It's a Marxist ideology. They're trying to indoctrinate kids, and you see it in survey after survey after survey. The young people, or especially in the millennial age, which aren't that young anymore, I get it, because we seem to say that anybody's a millennial that's like under 30, right? That or under 40 is what we say now. But there's another generation after that. But they've become more open to socialism. They've become more open to a lot of things. That's why you don't see a lot of people all upset about the extra $300 that everybody's getting. Oh, they just can't find work. But it's all the same thing. This is part of an indoctrination to change the country, as Glenn has been saying on his Wednesday specials over and over and over again. This is the Great Reset. They're trying to fundamentally change American society. It's not a conspiracy theory, as we were talking about earlier. It is their plan. They've documented that it's their plan, and you will not go against it, because if you do, you're just proving that you're the racist that we said you are because of the color of your skin.
Matthew, how would you feel if you sent your kid off and they're, fourth grader, and they came back and they're like, hey, I'm not supposed to tell you what my teachers are talking about at school? How would you react to that?
It's just unbelievable. I mean, look, as a parent, we always tell our children, you have to talk to us about everything, because, isn't this the way that sexual abuse, is gotten away with? Hey, listen, I'm going to do this. You better not tell your parent. This is completely contrary to everything that we're meant to do as parents. I think that the best thing we could do at this point is fund the students. and just take all the power away from the schools and there's enough people that want to go out and they want to protect the kids. I had an argument with someone the other day about them saying to me, why aren't I for my kids being taught about sex by teachers? I'm like, what? And they couldn't see that it was a bad thing. And I'm like, look, I know my kids more than you do, right? And if I can preserve their innocence for as long as possible, and by the way, when I tell them, I'm going to tell them the correct definition of what we believe that when they need to know about sex, what we believe that means, which is in a loving relationship, in a marriage, right? Like you said, all this is to separate the children. I mean, didn't a certain organization say that they wanted to destroy the family unit? It's trying to pit, actually I think it's about pitting the child against the parent, right? And I think it's really insidious, and we should be fighting it with every single fiber of our being, because it's not only, look, Americans need to understand that they're the last best hope for the world, right? They really are, and everyone is looking to America. Everyone, every country. That's why, when they do protest, the Cubans, they're not like waving the French flag, right, or the Italian flag. They're waving the American flag. We have a responsibility, and we have to stand up and represent. And we've got to fight this. Like, this is it. There's nowhere else to go. There's no other country that we can get on a boat and go to and build again, right? Yeah. And unfortunately, people have to understand, and Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time about suffering. We've become too comfortable. We've got to understand that this country is worth fighting for, and we have to do it. And if that means losing everything, we have to be ready to do that. We really do. And
it's a message that you do hear from somebody who wasn't born and raised in this country, but it's not a message that is popular amongst Americans that have been born and raised and bred throughout this system, going through the schools. And it's something that you have to be reminded of it, because at some point that message of the last best hope is just going to go away.
Right, and I don't think people in this country understand the freedoms that we actually still have. They're under attack by all stretches of the imaginations, but they don't understand that in places like the UK and in Canada and other Commonwealth nations, which share the same common law traditions that we have, you don't have freedom of speech. You can go to jail for what you say, for what you tweet. It's not just the fire in the theater test. It's you can go away for hate speech in those countries. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Look at Canada. You can go to jail for holding a church service in Canada, and by rights, the person that sent his provincial police at them was a conservative premier. So a conservative governor of one of the provinces. Around the country, people don't have the same freedoms that we have, and that's what they're trying to take away. And I don't think the American people actually understand that, I'm going to wear a Fauci lied, people died t-shirt into the airport on Friday. In the UK, I could probably be arrested for wearing that t-shirt.
Well, I don't know if they care about Anthony Fauci per se, but I understand exactly what you're saying with that. And, it kind of goes to say, when you look at this school system, there's been a survey that's come out that said more Americans are looking into homeschooling now than ever before. You see, okay, your fourth grader can't tell you what they're talking about at school. And now you look at what they're actually saying when you had the kids in your house during the pandemic. So homeschooling or trying to get the funding back to where the students are might be the best way out of this. So, there's a lot that we still have to address with the school system, but there are definitely a couple ways out of this. Now, when we come back, something a little more fun. The rich elites in the Hamptons, they're suffering this summer. The peons aren't just going to go work for them for nothing anymore, and they are going to have to wash their own hair. We'll have that for you when we come back. Oh, rich people are suffering. This is going to be a tough one to get through, you guys, but somebody is going to have to talk about it. So in the Hamptons this summer, they're saying that it's impossible to get some of the services they are regularly accustomed to getting. Now, they can't get a haircut when they want it. A lot of the restaurants don't have enough workers in there. They're getting turned away business, and they just don't understand in the Hamptons why this is going on. It's fine for you poor people across America, but we in the Hamptons have money to give to you to provide these services. So, Rob, we know that there is a worker shortage, and we know the extra money that the government is doling out, but I mean, there are rich people that are suffering. This is real.
I know. And those rich people probably in the Hamptons, 95% voted for Joe Biden and Democratic legislatures. And this $300 extra money to not work on top of the normal unemployment thing. So, you know, you're getting in some states $700, $800. And they went and cut, if you remember in the last one, they said that unemployment benefits aren't fully taxable. So not only did they give you the extra money, there's also a ton of people that like did their taxes and then that thing happened. So now they're going to get a bunch of extra money back. If I could sit home and make $800 a week for doing absolutely nothing, and I was used to making like 30 grand a year, and $800 a week is 40 grand. And if it's going to be lower taxes, it's more like 50 or 60 grand. Why wouldn't I stay home? And it's not just, I mean, we say it's the rich people, and I love picking on the rich, but I had friends that went to Logan Airport in Boston last week, 7:30 at night, nothing was open to get food. Now, if you've flown during COVID, you can't, unless you fly first class, like the rich people, you can't get anything served to you on a plane. They just don't do it. So like the little Hudson News huts where you can like buy a water to bring on the plane, none of those were open in this terminal either. So you had people going on like 4-hour flights to the West Coast that weren't able to get sustenance. It's absolutely unreal. We could change the situation tomorrow by getting rid of the free extra $300 because it's incentivizing people not to work.
And Matthew, we do see that when the workers that are still employed, they're having to take on the job of 2 or 3 other people. So they're stressed to the max and they're not getting paid that much more, right? And their coworkers are just hanging out at home collecting the checks.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's difficult, right? I mean, if you're seeing that, there are some people that are going to say, so why should I do this? But I think it's more than just a monetary thing because, when I was growing up, just a little bit of a background, I grew up like working class, very poor, single parent family background, but I used to look at America and go, you know what, if you work hard enough, you can become something, you can be someone and climb the ladder. And you could, and you still can in America. But it was a matter of pride that you would go out and work and that you wouldn't sponge off the system. Like to go to the system would be like, you'd be like, oh man, I've got to go on the dole and I've got to go and take money from the state. Like, that's so insulting. I hope nobody sees me. That's changed.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like, oh, if I can get it, I'll get it. And I don't care about them. And again, oddly enough, talking about the transfer of wealth, it's all these guys that are the ones that are making all the money, especially in the COVID lockdowns. So I think it's a bigger issue than just the money because, as I said back in the day, certainly, and I know a lot of people even today would rather turn around and say, listen, I am not taking that because I have dignity and I want to work for my money. And that was certainly something for me as an actor. There were many, many times when I haven't been working, right? Because you work and then you have a barren period of work. I have never, ever taken any money from the state. And that's since I was a young boy in the UK. Right, so it's what is instilled in you, I believe, from your parents. And I think there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, listen, if you can take it, take it. And for me, I'm like, don't take it, get out there, be a productive member of society. And especially for me as an immigrant, I'm like, I don't want to be here unless I'm going to contribute. Right, I'm not going to be a drain. I want to be a net positive for Americans. And by the way, the majority of people that want to come here feel the same. They do feel the same. Certainly my friends they're like, oh man, I'd love to come to America, but I don't want to come and be a bum. I want to contribute. I want to make the country better.
And maybe some of that self-confidence goes into this next story where the optimism for the future of the United States over the next year has fallen now under Joe Biden. It's up to 55% in a recent ABC News poll that says that they are pessimistic now about the future of the country. Back on May 2nd, that number was only 36%. So we are falling, and we are falling fast for the optimism in this country right now.
Right, and that same poll showed that Biden's losing support. The whole thing, it's a constant drumbeat of bad news. I mean, I grew up in late 1970s America. Yes, I'm that old. I remember what it was like every day if you sat and watched the news. I was like 4, 5, 6, 7. But you can understand that when you're that age, right? I mean, you can understand during the Carter presidency, you can understand what it was like. And that's what this feels like again. We've got the runaway inflation. I mean, I went to the grocery store yesterday, right? And like, I didn't buy, like, I'm not buying steak anymore. Like a big part of my diet was steak. To get like the select, the disgusting steak is like $12 to $15 a pound for like the sirloin now, right? It's the prices at the grocery store are ridiculous. I filled 2 bags yesterday at the grocery store and it was $45.
Yeah, they said bacon is up like 8%, and I think that's when Americans are really going to start rioting. Is when you affect the price of bacon, they can't have it. But you know, what do you look at with the optimism of the United States falling so far so quickly?
Well, I think there's 2 different things to this, because I think who were they polling in the first place? That's what I want to ask. Like, because everyone I know
527 adults.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I wonder what the percentage of those on each side of the aisle was, because I don't know anyone on the right that was optimistic about a Biden presidency, right? So maybe the other side are waking up a little bit to what a lot of people were saying before, is that, you know, he isn't probably the best person to run the country. But here's a shocker. Coming from Europe, I have such a belief in the American system and the American people. I just don't feel as despondent as everyone else does, because I can see the greatness in Americans, and I've seen them do it before, and I know that given the opportunity, they're going to turn it around. What is concerning is the way that things have been kind of partisan in, like, the FBI, CIA, all that. That is concerning, right? But I truly believe in the infrastructure that the founding fathers gave Americans, that give us the opportunity to address these massive grabs of power. And I just think that there's too many people out there, the people that they call the silent majority, that are like, hey, listen, we don't this. When the chips are down, they're going to go, hey, listen, you're not doing this to my country. I love this country. My grandparents fought and died for this country. We're willing to do the same. And there's a huge swath, the majority of the people in America are like that. And so I really do believe in the American idea. I really do, and the American dream. And I think it's going to come back. And I've never felt despondent, you know, because, for example, we have the opportunity in California. It was a nightmare. I moved to Texas. Moved to Texas. Great.
There's always some optimism, and I love that you're bringing the optimism here on a Monday evening. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this. Dallas Democrats are facing a backlash right now. They're trying to solicit packages. Of course, we all know about the Texas Democrats that went to Washington, D.C. It's like they don't have any stores in Washington, D.C., or maybe they're not open because they're handing out all this free money. But either way, they need some free stuff from you, the American public, to send to them. So, Rob, I know we have until Tuesday at 5 p.m. to send in our goodies. Are you gonna add
I may send them
to the
Dr.
list?
Pepper, you know, because it's Texas, right? So I mean, that's one of the things they requested. Can I just Venmo the money so then they can go to like 7-Eleven?
Right. I mean, Dr. Pepper, salsa, hard candy, or money to pay for shipping.
Yeah, or you should send them masks and hand sanitizer.
That's also the hand sanitizer is actually on the list.
On there?
I know
you are kidding me.
You're trying to be funny,
no.
But it's real, because this is the world that we live in right now. Sewing kits and first aid as well. Who's going to be sewing? What Democrat is out there sewing their own items when they're in Washington, D.C.? None of them. None of them are. So thanks, everybody, for watching the show today. You do have until Tuesday at 5 p.m. if you want to contribute to the Democrats' latest fundraising campaign. We'll have Sarah Gonzalez back here on the show tomorrow, everybody, but have a good evening.